warahmatullahi wabarakatuh. In the final stage of our underwater drone project, we carried out several testing processes to ensure that all components of the drone were functioning properly before it could be used optimal. The first step we did was condition an initial drone test. At this stage, we checked whether the drone frame, propulsion motors, and control system could operate properly when the drone was placed in water. We also observed how the drone moved underwater, whether it was stable or if there were still issues such as floating too much or difficult moving. During the first test, we discovered that the drone was too light, which made its movement in the water less stable and caused it to float toward the surface. Because of this, we decided to add additional weight to the drone. One of the simple solutions we used was placing stones as weights on the drone. These weights were intended to help the drone stay more stable underwater and prevent it from floating too easily. After adding the first stone as weight, we conducted another test to observe the change in the drone movement. In the second test, the drone started to show how more stable movement compared to the previous test. However, we still felt that weight was not sufficient. Therefore, we looked for additional stones that could be used as extra weights, so the drone could achieve better balance underwater. After finding more stones, we carefully placed them on the drone in the designated wake area. We made sure that the placement of the stones did not interfere with important components such as the motor, cables, or sensor that had already been installed on the drone. Once the additional weight were installed, we carried out another round of testing. At this stage, we not only observed the drone's stability in the water, but we also began checking whether the sensors installed on the drone were functioning properly. The first sensor we checked was the pH sensor, which is used to measure the acidity level of the water. This sensor is very important because it can provide information about the water quality in the environment where the drone operated. Next, we tested the turbidity sensor, which measures the level of water clarity or how cold the water is. The sensor helps determine whether the water is clear or contains many particles that cause it become murky. In addition, we also tested the water temperature sensor, which measures the temperature of surrounding water. Temperature data is also important because it can provide useful information about the environmental condition of the water. During the sensor testing process, we carefully observed whether the data produced by each sensor operate correctly and whether the sensor responded to changes in the water condition. We also ensured that the sensor continued to function properly even when the drone was moving underwater. After checking each sensor individually, we conducted a complete system testing of the drone. In this stage, we tested the drone movement underwater with also ensuring that pH, turbidity, and temperature sensors could operate simultaneously without interfacing with each other. After several rounds of testing and adjustment, the drone was finally able to move more stably underwater, and all of the sensors were able to function properly and provide the necessary data. Besides testing to the drone itself, we also started working on the documentation of of our project, including creating a PowerPoint presentation about the underwater drone that we developed. In this presentation, we organized several important sections such as the background of the project, the objective, the component used, the development process, and the result of the drone testing. Through several steps of testing, identifying weights, checking sensor, and preparing documentation, we hope that the underwater drone we development can function properly and be useful for monitoring water conditions. Thank you. Wassalamualaikum warahmatullahi wabarakatuh.